A very warm welcome to everyone who's with us today listening to this podcast. We are with Ramy Katrib, all the way from Los Angeles, from his office. Ramy is founder CEO of Digital Film Tree, a company that we'll dig a little bit deeper into today and also hear about the story. Ramy, it's a great pleasure to have you here. Thank you for making the time.
It's good to be with you, Atul.
Fantastic. Usually one of the key aspects that we start with really, Ramy, is the a elevator pitch. But you meet someone at a big event or a trade show. You sort of walking down the corridor for the next session or into the conference, and you sort of introducing Digital Film Tree. How would you introduce the company?
It's always a little different depending on just the vibe, the chemistry and the context of, who I'm in.
Let me put a context, and then maybe we can do this a couple of times over, right? If the context changes. So let's say I'm a big production studio leader,
Yeah.
right, from Hollywood. Now, how would you introduce?
Okay. So we are on face level like a normal post house. We do all the normal post house things like dailies. For us, we call it geo dailies, which I'll explain.
Okay.
Online, color, visual effects, deliverables. Even though we don't promote it, we also provide, editorial systems and also post systems. One of the kind of novel things we do is we build systems that look and feel like the systems we use at Digital Film Tree for other people to do their own post. And then more recently, because we had the opportunity to purchase the building next to us. We're here in Universal City. If I could turn the camera, Universal Studios is right up the mountain. We are now also offering, production space and editorial space. So that is the public-facing Digital Film Tree. We do all types of post services. If I'm talking to someone that is more along the lines of studio infrastructure or technology or security, it's an altogether different discussion. For as long as I could remember, our focus has always been on the data side of this industry. So like what we do practically every day in terms of the time we spend, the resources that we apply is really outside of the traditional post arena. So I think that's where we've always been trying to communicate better with the outside world in terms of what Digital Film Tree does and what Digital Film Tree is. And, that has to do with, how data has become such an essential part of our industry, how, productions are made, right, and the supply chain, that's why I was so thrilled to meet you and what you've done with Vitrina, because we have so many relationships around the world. And when I saw what you guys have gathered, that was extra meaningful to us because we've been manually building relationships. Right. And to learn that our community, our supply chain is entirely larger than I've ever thought it was. That's
That's right.
Yeah, but it kind of validated all this time and energy and investment we've made to connect
That's right.
to vendors and to production companies and to artists around the world. So I was heartened that it's bigger. And even though Los Angeles is absolutely going through a rough period right now,
Right.
other parts of the world are thriving, so to speak,
Yes.
relatively speaking.
Yes. Yes. So one confession to our to the network that's actually listening in on this podcast is that I've had the most fascinating conversation with Ramy, and I really enjoyed just the first interaction was so energetic when we were sort of excitedly discussing about the supply chain and where does it start, where does it end, and how deep and wide does it go worldwide.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you actually sort of giving that perspective as well. One question which I want to sort of double click on was that let's say if the context were we talked about a production house or a tech company and how you would introduce digital filmmaking. Let's say there's an international company from Japan or from the Middle East. How would that the value proposition or the intro change? And again, the reason why I'm asking is that Vitrina's members go across 100 countries. We've got now more than 72,000 sort of folks. These are all leaders, experts, and professionals within the supply chain. And they would be pretty curious if they were sitting in Japan or a Middle East or
Mhm.
Latin America. How would that proposition change?
Well, as it turns out, that's our actual mission. That's Digital Country's mission, to connect to companies in other regions. As I say sometimes, again, elevator pitch, we're actually using the internet to optimize the production and post-production process, but
Wow.
not so much downstream on the front end. In other words, when the creation happens, when production happens. But to your question, um, a lot of projects emanate from Hollywood, right?
Yeah,
There's tax incentive zones all around the world.
that's right.
And by virtue of us being here in Los Angeles and the way we grew up, just our culture, our approach, we always thought that collaboration, or what I call co-opetition, right? Because I've Digital Film Tree has been around for 25 years, so we've garnered a lot of understanding and wisdom over time, and not all of it is technical. It's more about all the changes that our industry goes through over 25 years. Um, we always succeeded with collaborating with competitors, or what is supposed to be a competitor. They do the exact same services, but we just grew up differently. We never thought that just because you do the same services, we can't collaborate. So where we've had success, especially in terms of infrastructure, networking, security over the source material, the camera raw material, what comes out of the camera sensor, that thing.
Wow.
We've always found that we can contribute or fill gaps to companies all around the world.
Good.
Every now and then we'll meet a company that is similar, and then we fall in love instantly. Like the vocabulary is the same, in terms of the technical approach and all that, everything that goes into providing above average infrastructure. Um, and and in other cases, we find that we can fill a small gap, and that has actually been really fruitful. For at least 15 years. So out of the 25 years we've been in existence, we have examples of working with companies around the world where we collaborate over a certain client.
Okay.
So sometimes a client comes to us and they say, we're considering producing a project in Japan or Prague or UK or wherever. And we say, as it turns out, we have a partner there. They're in really good standing. They're reputable. they're fantastic people,
Hmm.
have a record of achievement, all these, normal things.
Right.
It's kind of like when you refer a friend
That's right.
to a colleague that specializes in something. It's very similar to that. And then we open the door, and then our clients will then engage
Hmm.
and vet, right? There's always vetting. And sometimes that comes to fruition. Then all of a sudden, because we're connected, we're networked together, the client has the benefit of all of the resources of digital film tree in Los Angeles with that region. And again, the way we approach it is not that we're grabbing for all the services we can get, but by listening to where are the gaps that need to be filled. And that's kind of been our posture all along.
Hmm.
Because as you know, just about any company can provide online editorial or color correction, and in many cases, visual effects. But it's those tedious, more technical things that we actually enjoy filling, and has grown relationships and has actually grown digital film tree over time.
Fascinating. I was actually curious in in case of scenarios where that collaboration would really work the best, right? Is it um, when, like you said, there is a production that's actually happening, and for tax credit purposes,
Mm-hmm.
it emanates from Hollywood, but it's actually going into Prague, for instance. Would
Yeah,
that be, so that was one sort of scenario where that collaboration would occur. But then would it also be for capacities? Maybe there is one unit which is actually sort of doesn't have capacity, and then that capacity is being fulfilled by another company.
it,
There are
it,
different scenarios in which those collaborations would happen.
there are hundreds of scenarios.
Okay.
I don't think um, I don't think any two projects are even similar. But since you brought up Prague, and maybe I'll plug them. That's my friend Lucas from PFX,
Right.
and they've been in business for a very long time. And now they become a larger company that now covers Poland
That's right.
and the region. And their work in visual effects and other service categories is exceptional. So over time, I haven't had a chance to go to Prague. Man, I wish I could. It's on my list. But Lucas makes his way out to Los Angeles. So then we started meeting face to face, and we found that our cultures are very similar. And so
Just to clarify, this is Lucas and Jerry from PFX.
yes,
That's right. Perfect.
yeah, and they have a fantastic facility.
They do.
Their work
Yes.
is exceptional.
Right.
Um, so examples. If we get overloaded on the visual effects front, they're top of mind. We
Right.
check in. How's your workload? Can you take on this much overflow that we have? And then further, because they have good infrastructure, we have clients. I won't mention them because everything is under NDA.
Oops.
That requires servers to be in the Prague region because production is happening, but it's synchronized to our servers, and we have this state-of-the-art connectivity. And all of a sudden, we are using their facilities, their internet bandwidth, to synchronize to servers for the same client. And there's no VFX work involved. It's a pure data play,
Right.
on both sides. And the amount of trust that's there actually resolves a lot of challenges. So a lot of it is not technical. It's just the good nature of so many companies in our supply chain. It's all about the people at the end of the day. And that scenario that I described with two synchronized servers, that is brought to bear within a day,
Wow.
right? Because the relationship is there. So it's mostly listening to the needs of production, which is there in Prague,
Sure.
and then here in Los Angeles, and then the recipients of the production, as you know, are all around the world, which again goes to infrastructure, how we push data to all the departments, whether it's editorial, whether it's independent VFX artists or VFX vendors. Um, as you know, most shows now have multiple VFX vendors. So that's an example of co-opetition. It makes a lot of sense for the vendors to work efficiently together. So it is, in my view, the era of co-opetition. This old notion that I'm a vendor and I have some kind of special sauce and I can't collaborate with a quote unquote competitive vendor is either dying on the vine or just flat out dead at this point in time.
Fascinating. Fascinating. So that's a great point, and especially with we are actually seeing a lot of that cooperation happening on the co-production side as well. Lots of cross-border co-pros. We've actually seen a record amount of co-pros now over the last couple of years. Just telling us that there are different companies that are actually sort of both interested in the production as well as in the co-financing, co-development. So I think this kind of goes hand in hand with that philosophy as well.
That's fascinating. That's usually what you're describing is just outside of our immediate orbit, but
Right.
that makes a lot of sense.
Right.
Because the more connectivity and collaboration, it usually derives more efficiency, right? Time saved.
That's right. That's right. So, do you have any of the other reverse work also coming from outside to Hollywood?
Yeah.
Does that also
Yeah.
happen quite a bit?
Yeah. I mean, what I'm alluding to, I guess I'll soft announce. It's called the Global Post Network. It's been in play for, like I said, well over a decade, but we're going to start formalizing it and communicating it better than we have in the past. It has been in existence. It has come about organically, as I've described, through relationship building and meeting
Hmm.
all these wonderful vendors, and oftentimes they're also individuals. Atul,
Okay.
you know, whether they're specialists or generalists, this applies to the artists out there. It's kind of the era of the artists as well. For a long time, we would work on like some big project and we'd find out that a certain amount of work is being done by this individual. And then we find out they're like at home, right? They're not even a company, so to speak. They might have their own, LLC or something, but that's always been the case. But I think that has magnified over the last few years. People starting their own efforts, being independent. A very specific example of that is colorist. So traditionally, colorists will work in a brick and mortar traditional post house, whether it's a
That's
big
right.
post house or a boutique. Well, lo and behold, there's a strong movement now for colorists to choose to be independent or to have their own company. We support a lot of that. And another thing that we'll be communicating soon is, which is not public yet, but what the hell? It's called the Color Collection. And these are essentially what we describe here in Hollywood as A-list colorists. When you look at their resumes, it's stunning. Just the
Wow.
breadth of work, both in television and in feature.
Hmm.
And because of the current circumstance, there's not enough work for the traditional post houses to employ all the colorists that have been employed, coming out of 2022, 2023. So it made a lot of sense for us to
Ah,
employ our infrastructure and network to bring them into our, global post network. So it goes both ways.
right.
There's opportunities where an individual or another vendor, let's say in Japan, has a need that has a LA, they need viewing rooms or
Right.
space in
Right.
Los Angeles. Um, and we are here exactly for that, to accommodate, to assist. There's also kind of the shorthand of, clarity. Like, let's say you get an inquiry for a project, but our resources are already expended. You can just say the timing doesn't work. So just that clarity is very important. Because the cool thing about the smaller efforts is there's no weird uncle or overlord lurking in the background that has to make a decision, right?
Right.
When you work with companies like ours that have a similar sensibility, the decision is instantaneous. There's a
That's
high level of clarity immediately in terms of what's possible based on timing and budget and all the variables in play.
fascinating. So, uh, this is pretty exciting. So, the global post network, the way one could think about this is that companies can get attached to it. Um, international sort of post houses could get attached to it.
Mhm.
Individuals could get attached to it, and then as a consequence, they can contribute their work and collaboration uh, on that platform. Is that the right way to sort of frame it?
100%. And that's why, when we met, like Vitrina actually helps in so many ways just on that front. So for example, we have an indie production in Guadalajara,
Mhm.
and the director producer is looking for an editor, and they're looking for a certain style of editorial, right? And I had just met you, so I was like, you know what? Why don't we seek out an editor from Guadalajara? And he didn't even think of that. He
Wow.
was thinking, I need to seek editor from Hollywood. And I said, that's cool. But I bet you if you query, there's probably remarkable editors that fit your need in terms of the creative style or the body of work.
Right.
And sure enough, they gave a list of films that they're trying to reference.
Fascinating.
So I haven't brought that to your attention yet. The person in question is actually very notable.
Okay.
So there is another example for Vitrina, but yes, we are connected to them.
Okay.
So the dailies, for example, we orchestrate it from Guadalajara. In that case, the DP and his camera department are very technically savvy. So we built a network specifically with them. There's no vendor. They
Right.
just have the props and the skills to essentially produce, send the data to us so we can support them in terms of all the traditional dailies, and then support their editorial department. And that's for an indie feature, as one example.
Sure. This is so fascinating. I mean, uh, I understand Global Post Network now much more than earlier. One of the question was that just in terms of the tooling that is inside the platform, is that are you sort of continuously now enhancing the tooling? What's in it right now? What are roadmap items? Um,
Mhm.
can is there file sharing, and then a lot of the other tooling
Sure.
to sort of work on the files?
Yes. For all of our customization, we also rely on, industry standard solutions like Media Shuttle, Signiant. Um, the, that is integrated into our process. So depending on what the service is, let's say it's dailies, right? Um, with our partners, the solution is pretty worked out, pretty embedded. So if production is happening, let's use another region like UK,
Right.
um, like Ted Lasso. I like to use Ted Lasso because every once in a while you work on a show that becomes hugely popular, and you're always like surprised and you know
That's
thrilled when that happens. So we have our partner in UK,
right.
and we have our system. It could either be a PC or a Mac, that is placed in a secure location, something with 24/7 access, with a person that we either employ in that region or as part of the production or as part of the vendor that we are partnered with. When they receive the drive every day, from the camera department. We then start orchestrating a process that is somewhat complex, but at the end of the day, it derives the editorial dailies, and that goes to wherever the editors are around the world. And, in terms of editorial, generally speaking, the landscape is Avid, Premiere, and Resolve is up and coming in terms of being a creative editorial solution. And then you have the viewing dailies, which go to platforms like Frame.io or Pix or Dax or other. And then while all that is happening, the camera raw is being transported to our private servers. This is where we have made, I think, an above average investment in terms of infrastructure. So the idea is, if you centralize the camera raw data the day of or within 24 hours of production, and then make it highly accessible to the supply chain of the production that needs convenient access to it, then that derives production efficiency. And we're not the only people who endeavor to do something like that, but I think we have refined our process to make that as routine as sneezing or coughing. So our clients, with our partners around the world, have really gotten used to the centralization of their data and control, governance. So if you have, let's say, 6 vendors, the fact that you can access, and access is a multifaceted process. We can talk about it for a few hours, just that thing, but let's break it down from an executive summary. It's onboarding, it's whitelisting, and then it's genuine, competent support of the people you're onboarding. So if it's an individual or a company, where we have succeeded is building a team that is multidisciplinary to deal with promo departments, with other VFX vendors, with other post houses. And that is the subtle thing that I think gets missed in this process, because a lot of times people think it's just technology. So it's both. It's a combination of technology and really highly skilled generalists that have been doing this for a long time. That's why we, especially coming out of the pandemic, all of a sudden what we did routinely became more popular because people were at home. Prior to the pandemic, we had a tidy clientele that really, in my view, benefited from this efficiency. Since the pandemic, it just magnified because all of a sudden people were at home, and our industry didn't even have any frameworks for home security. Well, we had already started doing that. How do you segregate your home internet from your work experience? Well, oftentimes that's a sophisticated program router that can do that type of thing. So yes, it's rather involved, but the idea was to make it like background noise. So the users, the creatives, just have more versatility to work from home or in a brick and mortar building. But let me pause there, because as I get into it, I always kind of wonder, is this coherent?
It is very coherent. In fact, I was actually sort of also then wanting to connect the dots with the customers and whether it's the production house on the other side, or I'm guessing you might actually also be working with streamers and sort of commissioners of content. When they actually look at digital film tree, they essentially then look at you as a post house, also a network of other post companies globally, and then a platform that actually has some of these companies connected, as well as a host of experts who are working in their individual capacity.
Yes.
Are those the three things that they're sort of looking at TFT with?
Yes. When you look at other vendors as partners,
Yes.
there's a very unique advantage. By virtue of knowing each other, you know where the expertise is within any given company. So if we're approached by a certain need or challenge, the versatility to have and by the way, Vitrina represents what I'm about to describe at scale. So I can hardly wait to really meet more people in more regions of the world. But we're able to immediately refer or bring in people that we've already worked with who have a leg up on the particular challenge or need that we're presented. And it goes in both ways,
Okay.
right? I think the studios, oftentimes, both the studios and the streamers, we do work on traditional normal shows where everything is just routine.
Right.
But we also work on shows that have some kind of complexity or challenge. And there again, it goes to that gap filling mentality. We might not be the lead. We might not be doing color
Right.
or the lead VFX, but we never even had that thought in our heads growing up as a company. We were just like, yes, we can help. We can address that in concert with the lead companies. And I think sometimes people are like, they think it's weird. Like, when we, not all companies are culturally the same, right?
That's right.
So sometimes we run into companies that are like, this is not what we're used to. And we're like, okay, but we're here to help. And we can, play a secondary role. But when the engagements do happen, when chemistry does happen, it's magic, because then you magnify kind of the mind share, the brain trust, and then the collaboration. Like, let's say something goes wrong on one end or this end, the way, cool companies behave is to dig in.
That's right.
And then work together as if we were one entity, so to speak. And that's when it's the coolest. It's not just when things work out.
Right.
Sometimes there are challenges and problems. And, that's where culture comes in. And that's not really a technology play. So I know this is starting to sound like a psychology kind of
No, I think
presentation.
it'll echo with a host of folks, because finally it's the human magic, of creating something together and making it happen. And again, we all thrive when we are in the most challenging situations. Innovation typically comes out in those scenarios. I'm sure
Yes.
COVID must have been both challenging, but also a lot of innovations that got sparked off. My hunch is that GPN, or Global Post Network, that you described, might have also benefited from a lot of the real life experiences during COVID.
Yes, 100%. That includes our relationship in Vancouver. So I want to highlight that, because that's been 2.5 years in the making. A lot of our colleagues, they produce in Vancouver. People from Southern California in general love Vancouver. I know that there's even actors that will say, I'll work in Vancouver, but not Toronto, right? Just because of just the proximity.
That's right.
And, they would say, why aren't you in Vancouver? So our first intuition, as usual, was, let's find a friend in Vancouver. And of course, there's a lot, right? Vancouver is so rich in terms of talent and companies. So one of our studio colleagues said, have you heard of vaudeville? And I'm like, no. And it's a sound house in Vancouver and also in UK. And they also have an office in Los Angeles. So we met. And again, it's chemistry. They're very tech forward. they were already into all manner of remote audio services. Now that was interesting, right? We do picture.
Right.
We do audio for ourselves. Like when we generate our own content, we do everything that an audio house does, but that's not what we do for a living, right?
Right. Right.
And they had such a similar sensibility in terms of putting, ADR services remotely, and so we just hit it off. Also, they were really keen on infrastructure, and I was like, this is fascinating. Audio is such a tiny file.
Right.
Why are you guys investing in infrastructure? And they just had very similar sensibilities. So we have come together, and that was almost 3 years ago. And all of a sudden, we are doing multiple projects in Vancouver by virtue of this relationship. And then subsequently, I decided to have Digital Filmtree ULC.
Okay.
So, which was formalized because it was getting serious. There was a lot of activity, a lot of dailies, VFX work, and that grew from zero, that relationship. And so the only instance of DFT being formally in existence is Los Angeles and Vancouver.
Okay.
All the other partnerships we have are essentially pure partnerships. We are not setting up shop anywhere else. I've already decided it's Vancouver and Los Angeles. And then for New York or UK, out of the Global Post Network partners, there's Goldcrest, which is in New York and UK, which has remarkable facilities, lovely people. They do picture and sound. And just the fact that we can lean on them for what they have already done with any opportunity we have, or in reverse, any opportunity they have in Los Angeles is just so empowering. We don't have to build offices every time there's an opportunity. They're already there,
Right.
and they're so reputable, and they're, like I said, the body of work speaks for itself. So it just gets easier and easier
Right.
the more companies you meet, because then they meet each other,
Right.
right? So it's not just about Digital Film Tree.
Right.
Once the networking
I,
connectivity is there, then they can just ping each other directly for things that don't even involve Digital Film Tree. So it feels like we and our colleagues who are part of this have started a really, really good fire.
fascinating. I, you also have some relationships in, I think, South Africa. You have some relationships
Yes.
in other parts of the world. So, um, uh, uh, you know, also through this podcast, I would love for you to sort of talk to our network about which new markets are you excited about, where you wish for a partnership, because again, there are people listening on the other side who would say, hey, I think, Ramy is just describing me and my company. So
Yeah.
maybe that chemistry could actually happen from here as well.
Well, from the business hat, right? When you put the business hat, um, of course, all the tax incentive regions,
Yeah,
which is most of the production world.
that's right.
But more specifically, we're very interested in who we're already working with.
Okay.
So Budapest is upticking, right? We already have one project where we're working with Iron Art in Budapest.
Right.
Um, Amazing company, great body of work. Um, Southeast Asia is just fascinating in general. I have worked with a company and which is headquartered in Hong Kong called Salon Films for over 20 years.
Hmm.
And they have offices throughout Southeast Asia, including Japan. Pixel Logic
Right.
has offices in Japan, South Korea. So we're very excited about that. There's so much energy coming from Southeast Asia, but in the same vein, Africa. For me, it's like a learning curve. We would love to be involved with what seems to be gaining momentum, right? Not just in in Cape Town and Johannesburg, but Africa proper, the continent.
Got it.
Like, what are the challenges there? Where can we fill gaps there?
Right.
Because, storytelling, it changes the culture. And, over the last 25 years, I've seen that with my own eyes. There's regions like Singapore that
That's
were not as fluid with storytelling like in Seoul, right? But they endeavor to bring production to have that be an added feature of their culture, to tell more stories, to make more films, produce more TV shows. And whenever we can contribute to that, it's actually hugely rewarding.
right.
So I guess those regions, Australia is out of
I was
control
going to say,
right now.
that's right. That's right. The
Yeah.
tax incentives in Australia. I was going to actually mention Australia because we're seeing just so much activity buzzing right now over there. But sorry, go on.
Yeah, no, I mean, and we have all our colleagues working there. So I'm particularly interested in how we can improve upon the data flow
Understood.
in and out of Australia, because there's a lot of variability from region to region in terms of how much data we can get out or bring in. And mostly from the networking infrastructure, and also security is always part of the equation.
Right.
In terms of security, obviously, when I saw how you present vendors on Vitrina, TPN is a part of that,
Yes,
which I think brings kind of guardrails
that's
to
right.
all production chaos and so forth. So, we've always been part of that effort, but also above and beyond. There are scenarios that you can't even make up in terms of TPN frameworks,
Right.
and then applying best practices and subject matter expertise for, you know, um, more complex challenges.
That's right. That's right. No, but all of these markets are exciting, and one of the things that
Oh, I forgot the Middle East. We're
yeah,
interacting. So I'm born in Lebanon. I came here when I was 6. So that's kind of just a personal thing
got it.
to essentially be part of the movement and momentum in the Middle East,
Right.
whether in Saudi Arabia, or even, obviously, there's a lot of challenge in the region right now.
Right.
And then, we have so many relationships in terms of technology in Israel.
Hmm.
That has always been part of our experience. So I have to call that out as well, just personally.
Understood. 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 In fact, this is the world's sort of shifting on its axis quite dramatically on the tax credits piece.
Yeah.
Actually, seen in the last 1 year, just a host of countries either up the tax incentives and tax credits, or actually dole out a lot of cash for developmental projects.
Yes.
Yeah, with the conditionality that those productions should ideally happen domestically in that market,
Yes.
and that's the condition to actually sort of get those development sort of dollars at hand. What is interesting on that one, is that there are a host of smaller countries that are actually sort of incentivizing dramatically,
Hmm.
but their overall industry and supply chains are not very well developed domestically.
Yes.
And here is where I think something like a GPN would have a big resonance, because
100%. That Fiji. So we did a project in Fiji. Puerto Rico, early on, Puerto Rico has gained some steam, right? So our partner Reactor, in Puerto Rico, but we would be searching for infrastructure.
yeah,
So where is production? We would say, where's production happening? And then we map the region, and we've become really good at studying where the infrastructure is, whether it's internet service providers or, private networks even. And then we contact them and we say, hey, there's a TV show close by, and this is what we're thinking. And sometimes it's that manual a tool.
well,
But we tend to succeed in finding a good home base.
right,
And then all of a sudden you have this, like, essentially a post-production microcosm implemented right there. If we're given 2 weeks lead time, that is lavish. Sometimes things are happening so fast, it's hit or miss.
Right.
But if there's some lead time, oh my goodness, you can actually establish really robust infrastructure where there is none, right? And then that is our humble contribution in that scenario. But yeah, Fiji was bananas because they had just started I think it was a 40%, and this was like 6, 7 years ago.
Right. Right.
Um, but we succeeded. And then it kind of validates this approach, and then we get better and better at it over time. So yes, regions that are under resourced in terms of facilities, infrastructure, I think is where oftentimes we're more relevant. And then I don't know where it's at now, but in the last few weeks, I've had interactions with producers that are producing either in Morocco or Marrakesh, and then separately Serbia. And so we're like, okay,
Wow.
what's going on there, right? And then we dig in and then start exchanging notes and see how we can contribute. And that's just in the last 2 weeks.
Wow. Oh, so I mean, this is my hunch is that this is going to continue for quite some time, just because countries and film commissions are competing very heavily for work to sort of come into their domestic industries, and my hunch is that with that sort of the whole disturbance in the supply chain will
Yeah.
actually require standards to be sort of established, a lot of collaboration to actually happen, and especially from the center of the our industry, which is Hollywood. There
Yes.
will be a host of international companies that would want to very quickly sort of graduate to learning the lingo, the practices, the processes. So from that perspective, GPN is perhaps in a great timing.
Yes. To all our friends in the Vitrina, ecosystem, we are your humble friends from Hollywood.
Fantastic, fantastic. This is great, actually, Ramy. And one aspect that I was also wanting to sort of understand was the changes that you're sort of seeing continue post COVID. So COVID, I think, was like a watershed movement. A lot of cloud sort of happened. Cloud adoption happened across the supply chain,
Mm-hmm.
and then also remote. And now, along with remote, we have a lot of cross border. So, what kind of changes are you sort of seeing in the industry, and how's GPN and digital film tree sort of looking at those from a roadmap perspective?
Yeah. I mean, everything that we've done over the years was not precipitated by the events you described, including the strikes.
That's right.
So we, because of the way we started, which was the idea of using a desktop computer in 1999, to have video and audio that was digital instead of analog. So we just started at this notion of a file. So by virtue of that, fast forward, 10, 15 years, we've always dealt with the file, but we've done it from the standpoint of this, just the reverence for the physical film, because I'm old enough to have touched it, cut it, glued it together. And, many of the DFT staff are in their 30s or so. They've never seen it. So we show it to them. We go, this is celluloid. This is what it looks like. But by virtue of growing up this way, we were always concerned with how do we move it around? How do we store it? What's the cost of storing petabytes of data? And then the pandemic happened. We ended up assisting many more companies than we had ever assisted prior, just being essentially a net security and networking layer on top of their services. We did no services. creative services. We just played that little role. Um, and then the strikes happened. Um, and then everyone thought after the strikes there would be essentially a return to normalization, and then that didn't happen.
Right.
And now there's a lot of downward pressure to really take advantage of the tax incentives.
Yes.
So there's a lot of melancholy in Hollywood, just outstanding, below the line, above the line. It's really affected just everyone. I was hanging out with one of my friends who cuts trailers, and trailers is not in my immediate, daily experience. And I was like, I didn't even think about that. That's affected. Everything
Wow.
has been affected. It's so profound. It's really hard to describe, and um, it's kind of emotional because we're such a small community.
That's right.
It's in that community is the same if you go to Morocco, right? If you meet someone from production and post production, you're just kind of just instantly bound together because you understand each other's experiences. So right now there is measurable momentum to go to the tax incentive states. As it turns out, we had already done that before that was a thing, right?
Right.
We had done that when Hollywood was flush.
That's right.
So it's really bittersweet, to be quite honest with you, because we have the ability to help and assist internationally, but it wasn't like we designed this or envisioned this. We are now just part of the same circumstance with anyone, but we're definitely going to put our hand up and essentially be a tie line to Los Angeles. And if we can help anyone who essentially can be benefited by having a connection to Los Angeles, they should definitely think about Digital Film Tree and correspondingly all of our Global Post Network partners. There's news that there from our governor that will be submitted for consideration to the California governance,
And
and we'll
increase
see.
in tax incentives, increase
Yeah,
in right.
yeah, for sure. And I wish that would have happened sooner.
Right.
But looking at it holistically, I'm glad it's happening. And by the way, it only includes feature film and scripted TV. It doesn't include unscripted and animation and all the other things, which I think is a big missight.
Right.
I don't understand that because the Southern California is so vibrant in terms of just the diversity of storytelling that happens. But I hope they correct that soon. I think that was just something that was missed when they were drafting it, probably in a rapid fashion. So I'm sure I didn't answer your question, but it's a really pivotal time in our industry, and it's interesting that the greater life cycle internationally is maybe the beneficiary of this. So if you look at it from a silver lining perspective, that's great.
Yep.
But it's always better when all regions are essentially
Thriving.
benefiting or moving forward at the same time like it used to be.
That's right. That's right. And look, I mean, I think the US, we have to measure this data every day, just in terms of how many productions are getting commissioned, greenlit, or financed. And we've actually seen the big fall. Actually, first with the 2022 sort of Wall Street shocks, and then of course the strikes itself, and the death blow that it's actually sort of delivered to some the industry. What is fascinating is that the lesson for a lot of companies is that it's good to be diversified across geographies and have and to your point, you were already sort of doing that even prior to some of these crises. So it's just fascinating of how some of these aspects sort of, retrospectively seem like, oh, thank God we did this years ago.
Yeah.
Um, I'm
And
sure.
and I know we have to, we've only known each other for a little bit and we have a lot of deep diving to do, but I suspect you're seeing the trends that I'm experiencing in my microcosm.
Yes,
Right?
yes, yes.
It just essentially momentum to
Yeah.
these regions because we're
Yeah.
working on a handful of projects that are 100% going to these regions. And we're finding that we can assist because of pre-existing relationships and so forth. But are you seeing it like at scale, which is, beyond my comprehension in terms of what you've mapped?
So I mean, 100%. I think we are seeing a host of these patterns when you actually, when you're sort of looking at this from a supply chain perspective, you're
Mhm.
seeing everything way upstream. And then, it's almost like when the sun starts coming out in summer and it starts melting the Yosemite peaks,
Yeah, the ice.
then, yeah, the ice caps, and then you start seeing everything downstream get lit up.
Hmm.
Rivers start flowing again. So one of the things that we're actually seeing is that the big factors in our industry are stories and financing.
Mm.
Those are that it's kind of like the snow and the sun sort of relationship, right?
Yeah,
Great stories inspire producers to go and seek financing, and great financing actually helps stories become creative output. What we're seeing is that there are lots of stories that are getting bought right now. Lots of stories. I mean, great books, novels. We're seeing globally.
Do you,
In
do you see it as an uptick or a gradual rise?
So we saw a massive uptick in Q2, largely inspired by Netflix.
I see.
We almost, in fact, Netflix 10 days ago announced their latest results, and they
Hmm.
hinted a big increase in budgets for content next year.
Yeah,
We already saw that in quarter 2. Why? Because we were just seeing this massive development activity going on inside Netflix. We're just picking up lots of signals.
yeah.
We saw a few companies sort of ramp up their development slate in a big way. But what is also interesting is that that's happening right upstream, very, very upstream. And then the financing piece upstream is the whole film commissions, governments trying to lure projects in. But one of the places where this is really helping is that a lot of young filmmakers are actually getting financed in countries like Australia or Germany, where cash is being doled out. And that's great because, some
That
of
is
the
cool.
broadcasters, yeah,
Yeah.
broadcasters and streamers are catching those projects, uh, post development, and they're sort of giving that a big lift on the production financing piece.
Yeah.
So we're seeing a little bit of a thaw. It's a little bit more gradual than what we were hoping for in Hollywood, especially.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
I mean, over the last year, we've done, you know, maybe over the last 16 months, we've done at least a dozen indie projects,
Uh-huh.
which has been, so rewarding because we worked on Napoleon Dynamite, which I just showed to my 7-year-old, and
Wow.
it was awesome. He liked it.
Wow.
There's not a single curse word in that movie,
It's
and then
quite a big achievement in today's day. Yes.
exactly. And so, but it is so rewarding. It's not lucrative like a scripted TV project or a larger film, but it's highly rewarding. And I see so much energy happening when we look at what is being greenlit and so forth. Um, one of the outcomes of this transition that we're going through is definitely independent filmmaking, documentary filmmaking, private financing, and it's good to be part of that again.
Right.
More than the last almost decade where TV just exploded. It was bananas, and to have been part of that. So to be able to go back to our roots in terms of independent filmmaking is also something that I think has been really, really rewarding. the last strike, unscripted kind of was the beneficiary. It just started
That's
becoming
right.
much more present.
That's right.
So that's really good to know. And we have a lot of work. We've never even communicated with any of the film commissions per se. So that's good that you brought that up, because post houses
Mhm.
in particular, we help storytellers, but post houses tend to be terrible communicators. It's like we help other people tell awesome stories, but you go to like any post house website, and it's not, you know,
Yep. Yep.
it's not awesome usually.
I
So we're trying to
ensuring.
we're trying to change that with our new site and announcing the color collection and the global post network and everything we're doing. So I guess this is a soft start, Atul.
I can totally see that, and we seeing that those efforts from your team, Ramy, for sure. One aspect. I mean, you talked a little bit about your roadmap in sort of the global post network getting strengthened and enhanced, as well as the business expansion into a few of the regions that you talked about.
Sure.
One question that I have to ask you is about Gen AI, AR, VR,
Mhm.
some of the immersive aspects, right?
Yes.
Which of these aspects are you sort of most excited about, and which of these directly get affected, both with everything that Digital Film Tree does, and also the Global Post Network?
We're heavily involved. We just don't talk about it.
Yeah.
But here's what I will say. Um, I feel that we can play a role to help um, all our friends and clients leverage what is huge velocity in terms of AI and machine learning solutions already in existence, already moving at 100 miles an hour. So if anyone is discussing, is this a thing? It's already
Yes,
past.
gone past that. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so, in terms of approaching it from a practical, like humble perspective, you know, my sense has been you can't really derive a lot of benefit from these solutions until you have some kind of governance over your data, right?
Right.
You can't train AI or models for something that's sitting on a shelf
Yep.
unless you've worked out some kind of crazy physics technique, right? You need to have it in your possession, and it has to be highly available so that you can derive the most benefit from all of these solutions that are already there. I mean, I can throw a rock for any use case and it's already there. So that's what, for being a relatively technical company, my mind is blown. My friend Seth Hallen, who, in,
Yes,
who introduced us, just wrote, I think
that's right.
part one or part two, he has been deep diving into this.
Yes, I saw
Um,
his latest one. Yes.
yeah. And so I think in terms of anything fancy we're doing, it's going to be very use case specific and nothing that I really want to share.
Yep.
However, the idea that we're already helping productions and also companies or libraries, because we also have a restoration and remastering effort.
That's right.
We're not well known for it,
Mhm.
but I love it. The idea that you can apply the latest technologies, including AI, and readdress the past
Right.
and bring to bear content at scale is bananas.
That's right.
Like, that's as exciting as winning a new project, right? But in some way, even more exciting because you can attack a library with millions of hours of footage, and then the people that are the artists and the technicians are still there. They're
Right.
not replaced. They're essentially guiding all these solutions. I love that.
That's right.
And we're doing a lot of that in terms of, let's say you have a library with 150 LTO tapes. Well, you can ingest those and then attack the data, right? Up res it to 4K, HDR, and then monetize it,
Right.
right? Just do all these things, like reinvigorate your libraries. And I think clearly everyone is doing that in some capacity, but it's a huge area of interest just because we started with film, we started with old media. So I love the proximity to the future and the past. Like, who can make that up? We're like in the middle of simultaneous opportunities.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine how many LTO tapes have been generated
Right.
since since the Japan tsunami.
Gosh.
I've actually searched for anyone who can even come close to the number, because it's not a Hollywood thing. It's
Right.
a world thing.
Wow.
And how much of that data has been resuscitated, improved upon, and monetized, I think is probably at its at its infancy. And the fact that we and all the supply chain can be part of that is huge.
Is that fascinating? This is so exciting. Actually, is that also another place where folks could actually reach out to you and have discussions?
100%.
Oh,
Yes, we love. I used to work in telecine, so just the excitement of opening a can of
yeah.
film
Yes.
that has a date or a little stamp like from 1954,
Right.
and the fact that you can, yeah, we actually scan film. I should call that out. Our engineer Greg Filkins took it upon himself to build a 12K scanner for
Wow.
8mm 1635. He's unstoppable. So when we scan film, like whether it's 8, 16, or 35, we scan it at 12K because we can. And then it goes into this crazy like up conversion process, to
Oh,
HDR. And there again, there's probably like 12 AI solutions we use. I mean, everyone I think that's in the space uses things like Topaz and so forth.
that's right.
The fact that you can also add machine learning models and nuke,
Right.
copycat, it's become so commoditized that it's like I express it to my friends and colleagues as good news. There's all these solutions readily available. You don't even have to build anything, but
So,
you do have to bring it into this kind of framework, this
right.
organized framework, so you can derive the best results possible.
Fascinating. We have a host of distribution companies in our network, and I
Hmm.
bet that a lot of them actually still have a lot of these LTO tapes that are sort of awaiting transformation. Yeah,
Yes.
they should absolutely reach out from that solution perspective.
Yeah, we have a ton of LTO decks since before the Japan tsunami, because we've been using LTO, because it was more efficient,
Okay.
for our purposes, than an HD cam SR tape. So when they were gone, we then instantly started assisting our colleagues, especially in town, in terms of how do you back up to LTO? Like, what's the
Right. Right.
specification, and then LTFS and so forth. So yeah, I think that's a huge opportunity,
Opportunity.
because they're just latently sitting there. And the underwriters who insure the IP are getting wind of the fact that if the LTO tape has been sitting there for 15 years or more, you're in jeopardy.
Right.
So, best practice is to
Then
ingest it,
that's right.
geolocate it, and while you're at it, why don't you resuscitate it and monetize it, right? This is not an original idea, but we are definitely part of that momentum.
Fascinating. Fascinating. This is awesome. We covered a lot of ground, Ramy. We sort of talked about right from the intro to the company to your roadmap to also the expansion of your network. I can proudly say that Global Post Network got announced on the Vitrina podcast. And really detailed out. So this is fascinating. We'll we'll try and sort of get this out as soon as possible to our network.
Sure.
And it's been absolutely wonderful speaking with you today.
Likewise, it's been a pleasure, and happy post-Halloween, Atul.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.